Hello.
Hi, Vasan. Sorry, I
Hi.
think through the connection. It took a little while to get through to you.
No worries at all.
Yeah, and great to have you on the show. And let's see how it goes from here because it's my first try. Hope we can get a fruitful discussion going. I think as most of the viewers would know that we had already spoken and kind of informed everyone that you have chosen. Chhappan, Shimit Amin's film from 2004 to discuss with the group here. I must confess I was a little surprised by the choice, because, way back, the film goes way back, and from then on, this whole gangster cop universe has undergone such a tremendous change,
Right.
What made you pick up that film? Was it the character of the inspector, Sadhu Agashe, which kind of is something that is someone that you thought was very well thought out, or was it the narrative itself, the staging of the encounters? What was it? Let's kick off with that first, and then I hope that other people also join in with more questions for you.
Yeah? Right.
Tell us.
So the first time when I saw it in 2004, we were obviously like Nana Patekar fans, and it seemed like a Nana Patekar film as a hero cop. But when you watch it years later, you actually see that Shimit has made a film about disposable cops, and Nana Patekar is not really a hero. And it's like a great companion piece to Satya, wherein in Satya, how Ramu has shown gangsters as disposable henchmen. In Chhappan, it is the cops who are the disposable henchmen. So it's like a great companion piece which I saw, which actually Shimit makes it very clear right from the first scene. So we see on the highway there is this real scrawny guy who's sitting sipping chai, and Nana Patekar enters with 5 other people with guns, and Nana Patekar is the bully. And he, in cold blood, bumps off this guy who, as for the audience, we're told is the gangster. But in the context of 2004, since I have grown up here and I've known of gangsters or someone who has known gangsters and, seen crime firsthand in that sense, the cops are right. But in today's context, when we have gone through media and there's so much news about Kashmir today, Kashmir 20 years ago, India today, and so much knowledge about it. In that context, I think it's a completely different film to what it was, I think, spoken about in 2004. Shimit actually
made... let me interrupt you a bit. So when you say that, you watched it back then, in 2004 when, in a Bombay which was very different, in the world which was very different. What was the impression then to what the impression is now when you see it? Do you find a whole different approach that you yourself are adopting for the film?
Completely. Actually, when we saw, we were all Nana Patekar fans, and Nana Patekar is this great cop who is doing great service for the nation. And now today, when you see it, it shows completely different light on how the system works, wherein beat the gangsters and beat the lords of the gangsters and beat the cops and the people who are above the cops. Basically, these two are henchmen who are killing and fighting each other. And it's almost like the foot soldiers who are dispensable and who also are bullies within their own universe. But there is always a higher up to someone. So in that sense, the food chain is kind of very clearly drawn out for the cops and for the gangsters as well.
So you also, again, sorry to interrupt you, you also see the kind of correlation between the cops. I mean, somewhere the cops flowing into the underworld scenario and the underworld flowing into the cop scenario, because I remember there is a dialogue also at the very start of the film where they talk about कि आप police के underworld हैं.
Right. And which is what I mean. That was the blatant, empowering of people to be trigger happy, which is never, and so openly that is. When there is a real conflict zone, say like the northeast of Kashmir, the crime escalated to such a level that the armies come in and they are empowered to take certain measures, which obviously has gone wrong as well. And over here, in the civilian atmosphere, in that sense, if you could say, because Bombay is the commercial capital, so it still is never really entered that conflict territory, in spite of multiple terrorist attacks and in spite of the presence of the underworld. But this is the time wherein people are empowered to be trigger happy and really kill people or execute people, and that is so brutal that I think the brilliant first scene just lays that out. It is not really a hero's entry, wherein usually what happens is the bad guy draws first blood, and then the cop has to kill someone. Here, the setting is really not that. It is a very innocuous conversation between a seemingly unarmed guy sipping chai, whom we are told is the gangster. Obviously, he talks about having been to Kamatipura and girlfriends there. Other than that, we really don't know anything about him. But then there are these cops who are surrounding him in a very intimidating way and really bullying him. And one bullet on his head, and this other character Francis goes to him and pumps him, few more. So in today's context, that's a very completely different first scene. And also, when we have graduated to say like an interesting kind of a series called Family Man, wherein you have seen like Manoj Vajpayee, he is also dealing with crime that at home, getting vegetables in polythene bags that were done in Ab Tak Chhappan for the first time.
Someone, actually, I think, was it someone just said, I think, was it Anurag? I don't know. I can't really make out. But that the cross between Sri Ram and Guillermo del Toro and who was the third person? Bong Joon-ho. Yeah. Somebody just pointed that out. Yeah. So I know. Would you somewhere agree with that as well?
100%. In fact, Sriram imprints are also there in Ab Tak Chhappan because Sriram was supposed to do the film. And then I'm sure he must have been a part of the development of the film that he wanted to make. And there must have been those imprints that have passed over to what Shimit eventually made. But then Sriram happened to make Ekasina instead of.
So, I mean, in that sense, that Ekasinati and Ab Tak Chhappan kind of are parallel in their own way.
In a way, what I can see is for the first time, you visited cop and you visited conmen and criminals. And, we are talking about drumsticks, we are talking about sambar, we are talking about Maggie. I think these very domestic things, and especially in today's circumstances, wherein you're looking at those utensils and like I need to clean that. I mean, that had never happened.
Okay, I'm interrupting a minute. Anurag's that was a compliment for you. That was not meant for Shimit at all. The all three filmmakers rolled into one, and somebody's called you David Lynch. Yeah.
David Lynch is just this hair standing up.
Shimit is more Paul Greengrass and Sriram, says Anurag.
I do agree
really
to
kind of convoluting the argument. Yeah, tell me, sorry.
But what I really liked about Ab Tak Chhappan was it was very languid for a gangster drama. In fact, even if you look at the background score by Salim Suleiman, it was more pathos and really franticness or pulsating. It was never pulsating. It had its own rhythm, and mostly the scenes were very long, drawn out conversations across tables. In that sense, which is also the first half of Memories of Murder. You don't get out of that underground interrogation center wherein these poor peasants are interrogated by these two people. Uh, Something very similar happens in Dr. Chhappan as well. That is what and what I really loved is in very classic Stephen Spielberg or Hitchcock. What I really like about these single shots. I mean, obviously there is a Scorsese single shot, there is a Paul Thomas Anderson single shot, wherein your or a Alphonse Cuarón single shot, but here it's almost invisible. It starts as a master, then it'll go to a mid, then it'll go to a OS, eventually end at a close up, and then if the scene gets over, it gets over. Otherwise, it also gets back to a master. And all this happens, and you never notice any of this. You always feel it is actually an edit, or you're just not aware of the single shot happening, which kind of
the parallels kind of being drawn I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you midway. Baisakhi, hi Baisakhi from Toronto.
Oh, hi, hi,
Drawing
hi.
parallel with Seema Biswas in
Right.
Ek Hasina Thi.
Yeah, she wears a similar shirt though. Actually, that's a good catch. Her entry while crossing the road, and yeah, it's a similar attire as well.
But the domestic scene that you brought out, it's not just about his universe in the office versus his universe at home. There is also a very casual way in which the wife kind of gets into it. That conversation in the cab that they are having while
Right.
The guys from the other side is calling in. I mean, my reaction would have been, and I watched the film again after a long while, would have been that isn't it very odd that the wife is so casual about these things? Because in the normal course of things, the worlds are seen as very disjunctive
Right.
worlds. Here she's
Right.
so damn cool about it. Revati's character.
In fact, Revati's character is the one that actually humanizes Agashe. Because Agashe till then appears really cold-blooded. He's bullied. He bullies his team. He's killed this one guy who is unarmed. And it's only when he comes to his house with that vegetable, those vegetable bags, and interacts with the wife, is the only time he's kind of humanized. Because otherwise, I look at him as this hostel boy who's undergone bullying and is now doing the same thing what his seniors did. But is somehow also manipulated by his higher ups. So it's only when you go to his house, you somehow have a semblance of some humanity within him. Because otherwise, he's pretty cold blooded in that sense.
So, in some ways, then the characters kind of interacting with each other and creating a kind of sense of synergy in which one kind of takes off from the other, third takes on from, so it's.
Exactly.
But the style, the style bit is what I was struck with, and you mentioned Spielberg, and at one level I thought, in the hindsight after watching gangster and cop films, over and over again, there is a certain sense of, it's a very plain sailing world in a way,
Right.
He doesn't go in for stylistic flourishes in any major way. Does that appeal to you as well, or is it too old worldly, or maybe a youngster may feel, for all you care, that the film is actually for the lack of a better word, dated? Can we say that?
Yeah. So 2004 also was a year wherein everyone was going for a look. Like it was also a year where Lux released. For the first time, it looked very international. Or the way the army was presented looked very international. Or there was also on the other end Musafir, with, borrowed Anurag Panch haircut and hairstyle. I think Alvin Kalicharan. I think Anil Kapoor was styled for Alvin Kalicharan. That film never happened, and he kind of took that style to Musafir. And that whole Korean yellow, green kind of grading that we started to. Even Yuva was very stylized. So within all that, I think the two films of Shriram and Shimit, Ek Hasina Thi and Ab Tak Chhappan kind of stuck to being real in that sense. And that is something that has always been a point of discussion for me when people talk about craft. Because people just go for a very cosmetic approach to craft, wherein I think even very plain looking films, I think one 2004 film that we don't misses out is Govind Melani's Day. With Amitabh Bachchan, Feroz Khan, I guess. It was also a cop drama. Even that kind of goes for a very plain, very real, very grounded setting without any cosmetic punch to it. And I think Shimit has kind of been very consistent with it. Even Shriram has been very consistent with it. And I kind of like these very particular choices of not being seduced by the idea of seducing the audience with a certain kind of